Welcome to the first episode of Understand the Code. I am Varun Patel, and today we're going to be looking at the Fibonacci sequence of numbers. And the purpose of these videos is to create small projects so that beginners and other users of Python can begin to grasp concepts and to become better at programming and their techniques. So let's get started. The goal for this code is to be able to take input from the user and then use that input to print out a list from the Fibonacci sequence. And for any beginners out there, this project is best for learning for loops. So what we want our code to be able to do is that once you press play, it'll ask us how many Fibonacci numbers in the sequence would we like to generate. We would type in a number such as 7. And once you press enter, it'll return 7 numbers from the Fibonacci sequence. Because we know that 0 plus 1 is equal to 1, 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, 2 plus 3 is equal to 5, 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. So we can also type in bigger numbers such as 100, and it'll return a sequence of 100 numbers from the Fibonacci sequence. So let's take a look at how we want to build this bot. Well, how does a Fibonacci sequence work though? So I have here a small Fibonacci sequence. We begin with 0, we end at 8. This is a sequence of 7 numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. So in order to make our actual sequence in Python, we need to understand how it works in real life. So by looking at this sequence, we can see that our 0 can be described as our A value. Our first one can be described as our B value, and our second one can be described as the combination of A plus B, which can also symbolize C. So those are our first 2 numbers in the sequence. So now we have A, B, and C. But in order to get that 2, in order to move along in the Fibonacci sequence, what we're doing is we're shifting the numbers. Now B will become A, C will become B, and now we can take A plus B to form our C. That makes us 2, because we know that A plus B, 1 plus 1, is equal to 2, or C. And then we build the next part of the sequence. In order to do that, we do another shift. Our B becomes our A, our C becomes our B. We add those together to get our C, which is 3. So that's how the Fibonacci sequence works, and we'll be using that to make it in Python. So now that we understand how the Fibonacci sequence works in real life, we can now use that information to make it in Python. So the first thing we want to do is take input from the user. We want to see how many numbers do they actually want to generate in the Fibonacci sequence. So to do that, we can just make a variable, call it total num. And from that, we can take input from the user, ask them how many numbers. But we know that with the input method, it returns a string. However, since we will be using a for loop, we want to convert that into an integer. After that, we can start actually working on generating the sequence. So just like how we talked about in real life, you first need to establish an A and a B value. So for us, we can establish A as 0 and B as 1. So using that information, we can then begin to form a list. We can call that list sequence, our Fibonacci sequence. And we know that in our Fibonacci sequence, the first 2 numbers are our A and our B, or 0 and 1. So now that we have that information, we've been actually building the part of the code that generates the rest of the sequence. So using a for loop, we can do for I in range of 1 to the total number, or the value we took up here, minus 1. Because we have already generated 2 of the numbers right here. So using that, we can now establish that C is equal to the combined values of A and B. So now we have A, B, and C. So that means that we can begin doing the shifting our variables. So now our A will become equal to our B value, And our B value will now become equal to our C value. And we can take our sequence that we've had and we can append the C value. And after the sequence has gone on for as many times as the user wants, we can then print out the sequence. So now that we have our code, if we just scroll down and we play it, it'll ask us how many numbers would we like to generate. So we can see something like 9. Boom, 9 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our 0 and our 1, those were our A and B values at the beginning. We added those together to get our C value, our second one. And then we did a number shift. And we continued doing that until we returned the number that the user wanted. And that is the Fibonacci sequence in a nutshell.